Are there riches in those niches, or niches, as I would say on the other side of the world? So today we're going to be talking about niches. Is this something you want to do as a consultant? Do you want to work into a niche, or do you want to go more generalist? Let's talk about it on the show. Welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 61. Today we're going to be talking about niches or niches. A lot of people in the US say niches, and I think they just say it because they like to say there's riches in those niches. But we're talking about niches today with a little apostrophe. And let's talk about whether you should be niching inside your consulting practice. Now, before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like what we're putting out. We're going to put out another episode every week, and to let you know when that happens, you can subscribe right now or on YouTube by clicking subscribe button and hitting the bell. If you can do that, that'd be fantastic. And if you've got any comments and questions throughout the episodes, please leave them for me, or visit russellpearson.com where you can actually leave comments in the contact form. Now today, let's talk about niches, let's talk about those niches, and assess whether it's a good idea to focus on a specific area. Now, a niche or a niche is about defining a specific focus for the area that you want to work in. A lot of people look at a niche as a sector or an industry, right? And I want to show you a way that you can actually take probably a more broad definition, but way to get very specific. But first, even before we get on to the how of that, let's talk about why. Why would you want to niche at all? Well, there are multiple reasons to niche, but the first and foremost is energy. Right? You as a solo practitioner or a practitioner within a small team, a consulting team, the energy you put into your organization is pretty much all you've got. It's the energy you've spent in the past, which is the resources, the team, and the money you all have with you now. The energy you're going to spend in the future is the same, limited 24 hours. I keep saying it, that everybody has on this planet. Apologies to those people who've got less than 24 hours to live. But the focus of the energy is like, where are you going to put it? Because you could put it everywhere, but it means that it dilutes the effectiveness of where you put your energy. So energy is activity, where you're going to put your time and attention. So a niche will allow you to focus on one specific area. Now, I have heard people tell me that their niche is men, right? Which is half the population of the world. That's 4 billion people. And I'm here to tell you that that is not a niche. I've then also heard people say, no, it's not just that demographic. It's actually women over the age of 40. All right, so it's a quarter of the people on this planet, 2 billion people. So that's not a niche either. In fact, demographics generally don't tend to make a niche. Unless you're talking about locality, which is part of the equation. But let's look at how we can break it up. Actually, no, let's not get to that. Let's keep sticking on the why for a second. Why else would you want to use it? So there's energy output. There's also the identity that people walk around with every day in their head. If we can talk specifically to that identity, they will pay attention to what our message has got to say. So if I was to say, for instance, okay, this message is for bookkeepers, then all the bookkeepers are going to lean in a little and listen up. Now, if you're not a bookkeeper, you're not. You're going to be almost repelled by that. But that's what you want to do in most of your marketing. You want to engage the people that are the right target market, and you want to repel everyone else. Because if you don't repel everyone else, then they may come knocking, which means that you're going to get inquiry or leads from people who will never buy from you, because you're ideally wanting to work with a certain type of people. This is all about choices. And that's the great thing. It's one of the pieces that we talk about when we talk about the select consultant, is you want to be able to select who you work with. Well, a niche is very much part of that. You can decide who you want to work with, how you want to work, where you want to work, when you want to work, and defining that's part of defining who is the audience that I want to get in front of. So reasons to niche are certainly that we will expend less energy. We will get more focused results by going to a specific audience. 2 is that audience is going to notice our messaging more because we're specifically talking to them. Now, the third reason is actually a really good reason as well. It could potentially even be the best reason, which is that if you continually work with someone who has either the same challenges or the same experience or is in the same environment, the way that you deliver is going to improve simply because you've got repetitive practice in a certain area. So let's say that you're getting results for these bookkeepers, just that imaginary audience, because you're working with the same types of people in that, so they're bookkeepers, they will often have many of the same issues depending on what sides of business. So a solo practitioner as a bookkeeper will have very different problems than a bookkeeper who's running an organization of 100, 200 people. But at the same size, which is part of defining your niche, how big do you want it to be, they will have the similar issues. So they'll have similar problems, similar outcomes that they want, which means that there's a similar way to deliver a result. Now, if you get to deliver a result multiple times and practice it over and over and over and over again, you will get better. Obviously, you've got to be considerate in the way that you actually go about practice. So just doing something on autopilot doesn't help you get better. But if you are reviewing how you got to the result, reviewing, is there a faster way to get it? Is there a more effective way to get to that outcome that client wanted? That it's going to mean your delivery is far better than it was if you were to be a generalist. Now, I had a conversation with Alan Weiss on a past podcast. Go back and have a look at that. But the discussion there was definitely about having a generalist process so you can actually help anyone. But that doesn't mean that there's not value in specialization, not necessarily for the skill set or the modality of consulting, but for the messaging and for the connecting and for the communication with a specific market. So there are pros and cons of niching or not niching. The con of niching, the problem with it, is if something happens in that market, there's a downturn in that market, or that market disappears overnight, or it can happen, it's happened in some industries and sectors before. If that happens, then you're going to get a massive hit and you're going to have to adapt or even re-evolve your practice so that you can find a new audience. Now, that does not happen all the time. It is actually quite rare that there are big downturns that you don't see coming if you are intimately part of a market in a sector. But what I'd like to do is show you how I help people identify their specific niche. And what I do is I actually use 4 different criteria to define that market. So I'm bringing the board over.
I wanted to quickly jump in and remind you about russellpearsonprograms.com. We put all sorts of resources specifically for consultants on that page, and if you go there right now, you'll see that there are some new resources available absolutely free for you to download. So go to russellpearsonprograms.com. Now, back to the show.
We'll have a quick chat with the board. It's always a good thing. Now, for those on the audio podcast, I am being thoughtful of you. I will say everything out loud and I'll describe it. But if you want to actually see what it looks like, come over to YouTube and you can check it out there. Now, we're going to put a cross, 2 diagonal lines on the board. And on top of that, we're going to write the word niche. And I say niche because it's got the little apostrophe on top of the E, right? So you can say niche if you like. You can say whatever you like. That's absolutely fine. But what I like to see in an effective niche, in a really focused niche, is to have at least 2 of these 4 different areas I'm going to discuss. So they either need to have a specific audience. And as I said before, a rough demographic is not a specific audience, but a role in a business. So a CFO, right, is a specific audience, or a CEO, or let's say a dentist, right? These are all professions. They're all quite specific. Now, what also could be so even more specific than that, let's say dentists in this zip code or this postcode, right? So it's got a specific role, but even on top of that, it's got a specific location where you'll find these people. So how broadly do you want to actually look is a large part of defining your audience too. Now, on a sidebar, that comes down to how you want to work. So if you want to be working with people face to face, then having someone within your locality is going to be an important process. And if you do pick local area for where your market is, then you will be focusing on local area marketing, because that type of marketing is what you need to do for the locality. And that means that digital marketing and broad TikTok type of marketing are actually going to be far less effective because they're more global forms of marketing. Okay, so if you're going to go to a global audience, though, you want to maybe work through a screen or through Zoom or some other streaming platform, that's absolutely fine. You can go to that much broader market, but then understand that you need to get more specific in other ways. So are you targeting a certain type of dentist or a certain size of dentist, right? The more specific you can be on the audience, the better. But I don't want to just stop there, because that is fairly demographic in its answer. So the second one is, do they have a specific problem? Now, I've talked about problems and symptoms before. I'm going to get more into it next week. But do they have a specific problem that they want solved? And by specific problem, I don't mean overwhelm. It's not a specific problem. Overwhelm from what? What is the overwhelm causing? That they're the real, more specific problems. And so, for instance, in my world, one of the problems that exists for people is that they are not getting enough clients. Can't get enough clients. Now, I'll dig into that problem a little bit and find out specifically why and how and what type of client. There's more specificity that I can get in there. But if I say, are you struggling to get clients? Then those people who are struggling to get clients are going to respond. Right? So problem is another one. On the flip side of that, is there a specific outcome that you will deliver for these people? Now, again, back to the example with the Forge. So the Forge is a business program that I run. It is specifically for consultants as the audience. Now, is consultants a very specific audience? It's still fairly broad. It's better than business owners. It's better than sort of expert businesses or expertise businesses or service businesses. But still, it's a fairly broad activity. So there is management consultants, there are consulting engineers, there are consultants and therapists and specialists in all sorts of different areas that are much more niche. But I'm just going to take one beat when it comes to the audience. I need to have at least two for it to be a real niche. So, for instance, with the Forge, the audience I work with is consultants, and the outcome they want is a client generating systems. In other words, they want to get clients regularly. And that's what I help deliver. It's client acquisition. So I've got those two elements to define my niche. Now, could I get more specific? I think I could. Absolutely, I could. I do like the breadth of activity that I work on, but the reality is, and this is an interesting thing on niche, often the argument against niche when it comes to a consultant is I might get bored. All right, and I don't believe that to be true for two reasons. One, I have seen people niche down to the ridiculous. They've got so specific in their audience, and yet still they don't get bored because every human that they're working with is quite different. Which means that if you're working with humans rather than businesses, so to speak, then you actually get to have a very different experience working with each individual. So I don't think that is the case. Plus, the other side of it is that people think that the niche might not be deep enough. And so there's that old comment of having it an inch wide and a mile deep rather than a mile wide and an inch deep, which is very shallow. You want it to be deep. The concept there is, yes, you do need to have enough people to be able to work with. But I believe if at least there's a few thousand people in that specific niche, you've got enough for this consulting business, right? Because the more niche, the more valuable you are because you're more specific to the problems and outcomes that they want delivered, and therefore are able to help them and create more value, right? So if you can create more value, you can usually charge more, which means you need less clients, right? So let's go through it again just quickly, especially for those on the audio. Specific audience, specific problem, specific outcome, and then finally, specific method. So I think method can be limiting, but for instance, with some people, the only way that they'll actually work with someone is through an app or through a specific service that they deliver. So an example of someone I'm working with at the moment, they have really niched down and they've done a really great job at it. Their method that they're going to work with is people who want to run podcasts, right? People who want to start a podcast, get their message out there, get their story out there, and they've come from a place where they actually looked after communication, marketing, and promotion in general. It was very broad. they were spending a lot of energy going in all these different directions, and now they got more specific with the podcast. It makes it a lot easier for them to identify who wants to work with them. It's like, where can I find people who want to start a podcast? There are all sorts of podcast interest groups. There are all sorts of podcast communities and people who have expertise that would be sharing on the podcast. Authors, all sorts of different people, right? So method can be the fourth one. So if you've got a specific audience, a specific problem, specific outcome, specific method, that's as niche as you can get, right? But the key is that they each need to be specific on their own. The idea isn't to create specificity by having multiple of these points. It's for each one to be very specific. One specific problem, or one specific outcome, or one specific method, or one specific audience. Okay, so the example would be, I'm just going to use the dentist one since I said that before. By the way, I have no idea why I said dentist, but I've worked in like 200 different sectors, so I could just pull these out and just play with it, right? So let's take a dentist, right? A dentist, it's a specific method, all right? The outcome might be, so let's start with the problem. The problem might be I have a hole in my tooth. I go to a dentist. They'll actually start seeking out your method. Now, the audience might be, because dentists tend to work with like fairly broad demographics, the audience might not be very specific, but at least we go within a certain location, a certain kilometer or mile around that dental practice. Okay, so they've got a specific problem, they've got a specific method. Now, let's say that they didn't want to deal with the problem, they want to deal with the outcome. So whether the dentist that makes teeth white, right? I'm just making something up now, but that's their real claim to fame, is that they make really white teeth, sparkling white teeth. Well, those people are also going to be in competition with someone who has a different method, which is the teeth whitening people, and you see those ads all the time. Now, they're not a dentist, right? They might play one on television, or they might have an actor who's playing a dentist or whatever it might be in their commercials, but their method is not the same. So their outcome is the teeth whitening. They need to get very specific about, all right, what are they answering? And sometimes it can be a specific problem to a specific outcome. And that's actually quite easy, because if you identify that the outcome is white teeth, you would automatically go, well, I imagine that the problem is that they don't have white teeth. But in actual fact, it's much easier to go with, where is the problem to get the outcome? If you start in the problem or the symptom location, you'll be able to flip that coin to get the opposite. Whereas someone who's got white teeth, it could be a case of the reason they want really white teeth is because they're an actor that wants to look a certain way. The reason why they want white teeth is because they have like dull, non-white teeth. The reason they could want white teeth is because they've got dentures, right? And they're now getting new teeth. Right? There could be all sorts of reasons. Yet, if you actually get very, very clear about the problem, it's much easier to just magically guess the outcome, which is if you said, I don't have teeth. I don't know why I'm going down this thing. Probably freaking out. I know people can get really freaked out by the whole teeth conversation, so I apologize to those people. For some people, it's like, nails on a chalkboard when we talk about teeth. But we're here, we're going to use it, all right? So let's say, I don't know why, but we are here. All right, so let's say that someone doesn't have teeth, right? And so the outcome they want, if they want to fix that, is to have teeth. I don't have teeth, I want teeth. Now, are they going to go to the dentist? Maybe they do, but they're probably more likely to go to a denture specialist, someone who actually makes dentures and the like, and they may want white teeth as an outcome, but it's quite easy to say, I don't have teeth and I want to fix it. I now want teeth. I love how we got here. It's fantastic. But I want you to think about your own practice. I want you to think about your own consultancy. Is it niche enough? And the way you can tell if it's not niche enough is no one's responding to your messages. If people are not responding to your offers and your messages, then it's likely that you're not being specific enough. I often hear this myth, which is a complete lie, and I want to just kill it right now. It takes time to build these things. It is completely false. If you have the right message to the right audience, they will act. and they will act immediately. Right? They are not going to wait for you to build your brand. They are not waiting for you to become more known in the market. You're in front of them. They have a specific problem. You've got a specific outcome, and you've got a way to get it that appeals to them because you spoke specifically to the audience. They're ready to say yes now. And defining your niche or being more specific with your niche is a really good way to get more traction with the marketing and messaging that you're putting out there to the world. So hopefully that's been of use to you in this episode. If you haven't already, go to russellpearsonprograms.com. We've got a resource that you can actually download there. As I'm speaking now, it's going to be the Select Consultant guidebook that we've got there, but we do change it up from time to time. So if you're looking at this in a few months' time from when we launched it, there may be a completely different offer there, and it's definitely worth downloading because it's absolutely free. And everything we put there is designed for consultants just like you. I'd love to hear what you got from this session today. Do you have a specific niche? Put it in the comments below. Let me know if any of these insights that you got from the session have helped you get more clarity and more cut through with the messages that you're putting out there to the world, so you can actually attract and work with ideal clients in your consulting practice. Until next time, my name is Russell Pearson. Stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.